What up, everyone? Sid Temangala here, the Reverend of the Revolution. Welcome to your Daily Revolution. Today's topic: when will you decide to grow up? Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Had some powerful conversations with some of my coaches, some of my clients, my wife, my kids, people in my church, people in my community, people at the gym. And one of the conversations stands out amongst all the rest. I was having a conversation with a friend, and we're talking about just business people. And he says, when will people ever decide to grow up? This is in response to a man who's running two different businesses. And he's running these businesses, and he's behind, he's up and down, he's going through some struggles, firing, hiring, lawsuits, like all kinds of things which are just common of entrepreneurs and business owners. And my buddy's like, look, at what point do people decide to grow up? I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, you can't keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Like, you can't. There comes a point in time where you got to stop. You got to stop and say, I will no longer repeat these mistakes. This reminds me of 10 years ago at this time, literally 10 years ago, October 2008. We're getting ready to get kicked out of our home. I'm not producing. The business is struggling. I'm hurting for money. We've already given up 2 of our cars. We're about to give up our last car to the bank. And then we would get evicted out of our home. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to buy a luxury car again. I'm never going to buy a big home. I'm going to live in an apartment the rest of my life. You say things like that when you go through experiences like that. It's like someone who goes through a divorce. I'm never going to get married again. I'm never going to love again. That's not the lesson. Not buying a luxury car, that's not the lesson either. See, my question for you is, when will you decide to grow up? If you are still doing the same things today that you were doing 10 years ago, and those things are unworkable, meaning they don't give you what you want, they don't help you to move forward, they don't give you power, when will you decide to grow up? Like, you're not in 3rd grade anymore. There comes a point in your life where you've got to decide, I'm not going to do this anymore. 10 years ago, we're getting evicted out of our home. 10 years later, I'm sitting here shooting this podcast, and I've got a business, and it's a startup business. You're sure I've been in business for 5 years, running businesses since back in 2003 when I finished up the NFL. But the current business I'm in is a startup. Yeah, I do podcasts, and I influence, and I teach, and I speak. But you got to understand this. Like, I can't be in 3rd grade or 5th grade. I've got to grow up. And by that, I simply mean I cannot do the same things that I did 10 years ago. What I'm really talking about is you can't make promises and then just don't keep them. It doesn't work. You can't over-leverage yourself. It doesn't work. You can't pretend to be one thing when you're really something else. It doesn't work. It may work for a season, but it doesn't work. So what does this mean for you listening to the podcast? Well, let's just take a look at the big 4, the physical, spiritual, relational, financial. In your physical world right now with your health and your fitness, look, I get it. The holidays are upon us. Most people are a little bit heavier than they'd like to be. That's just a fact. They're a little bit bigger than they'd like to be, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. My question for you, though, is there something in your physical world, your fitness, that's not working, that you're still holding on to? You're still blaming, your thoughts, your beliefs, your truths. Do they work for you? In the spiritual part of your life, does it work for you? Are you doing what's required? Are you still in 3rd grade operating on laws that don't really work? Relationally, is your marriage off the chains? Is your marriage amazing? Or do you walk around with resentments, silent treatments, wishing that maybe you married someone else, hoping that maybe life could be better with some fantasy woman or some fantasy man? I know a lot of people who do this, and like, you got to stop it. Like, you're not in third grade anymore. If your marriage isn't working today, wake up. You have the power to do something about it. You have the power to do something about it. And if it's not awesome and you don't want to make it awesome, don't go cheat, get a divorce, and then go do what you want to do. But don't step out on your wife. That's not going to work. Don't step out on your husband. That's not going to work. You're not in third grade anymore. And then, of course, in the business realm, right? In the business realm, just consider this right now. Are you still in third grade? What do I mean by that? Have you invested in yourself to the point where you're growing your business? Or are you still trying to farm everything out to all the hucksters and the chucksters and the marketers and the con men out in the marketing world and in the consulting space? Get out of third grade. You're not in third grade anymore. Meaning, there's got to come the point in time where you just decide, I'm going to grow up. I'm going to level up. Like, I'm not going to repeat these mistakes. I'm done doing these things. You cannot continue to live like you're in third grade. So when will you decide to grow up? Victim stories? You still telling victim stories? You still upset about the past? Like, when will you get out of third grade? I want to give you 3 quick tips to help you. And they're like really simple, powerful tips. Number 1, stop being a victim. Like, don't be a victim. Like, seriously, do not be a victim. That means you blame and you complain and you shame and you guilt and you shift responsibility. Stop it. The life you have today is the life you have created, which means you have the power to go create your life moving forward, no matter where you're at. So number 1, don't be a victim. Number 2, take 100% responsibility. Now, these go hand in hand. Like, full responsibility. Like, you got to own your life. Your life today, you created it, so own it. Own the fact that if you're unhealthy, you're unhealthy. Just own it. Embrace it. If you're underweight or overweight, or you have no stamina, or you're just not feeling well, or you're addicted to some type of drug, or you're addicted to some type of drama, just own it. Like, I did this. Like, full responsibility. Number 1, stop blaming. Don't be a victim. Number 2, 100% responsibility. Number 3, do something that moves you forward. So many people get paralyzed. It's called, paralysis by analysis. Just sitting around wishing that it could get better, and I hope it just gets better. And like, slap yourself. Come on now. You're not in third grade anymore. You got to do something. You are at choice. You have the power to do something. You're not a victim. You're not a baby. Unless you are like really a 4-month-old baby. So that's it. When will you decide to get out of third grade? When will you decide to grow up? And you can do it, my friends. One day at a time, one step at a time. Let's go. For more info on joining the revolution and living your greatest life of prosperity today, go to www.yourdailyrevolution.com and join us in waking up, turning your brain on, and prospering today.